Well, now joining us here on A's Cast Live from the studios in San Francisco. I know I've said this a lot, but I'll continue to say it. I have covered a lot of people who have worn the green and gold. I've covered guys that were playing for the green and gold when I wasn't even alive. I've now gotten to know them over the years. I've been around this for a long time, and I'll continue to say it. He is one of my all-time favorites. And I can't tell you, Jonny Gomes, how excited I was. When they get us ready for what's going to happen on the TV schedule. And, I'm always in here when Brody's not here. And they told me that you were going to do it. I was like, right on.
Yeah.
Like the perfect guy for it.
Side by side with Townsy.
We ride again, the Johnny and Townie show.
We do. Let's get it in.
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be back. Baseball's all I know, man. Baseball's all I know, so I'm not playing anymore, of course. Those cleats are definitely hung up. But let's talk ball.
Well, I've mentioned it plenty of times with you that, a guy that we're both close with, Bob Melvin, had so much respect for you that Bob Melvin said, I see him as a manager. And we've talked about that multiple times with Bob, and I've mentioned it to you. First of all, what does that mean to you when truly one of the best managers of his time? I mean, Bob Melvin's won Manager of the Year in both leagues. I mean, the success that he's had, looking to get that first ring, but the respect he has in the business is unbelievable. The fact that he didn't have you for like years and truly saw what your leadership qualities are, and the man that you are, that he thinks you could be a great manager in this game.
Yeah, it means a lot coming from that guy. Like you mentioned, Manager of the Year multiple times. But I think there's a lot he does outside of the limelight. A lot he does in the clubhouse, on the plane, on the bus, allows you to get the best out of you. And I think more than anything, he just puts you in situations that you will shine in. And if you're not in a situation, door is always open to Bob Melvin.
Well, plenty of times I was in his office doing the Bob Melvin show, and you would have people come in and like I wasn't even there, right? And we all know when I'm around, especially back in the day when I wasn't working for the A's and I was just working for 95.7, that everybody kind of knew what was said. I was never going to turn around and go to the air with that. So people would come in and say stuff as I was sitting on the couch, and it just goes to show we don't know the everyday basis, the heartbeat, the problems, the issues. You guys are human beings. You've got wives, you got girlfriends, you got parents, you got kids, you got friends. There's issues going on. And the one guy that's got to kind of make everything work and go well, I always say he sits at the front of the plane. He sits at the front of the bus. He's the leader. That's the manager.
That is the manager. That's the heartbeat of the whole thing. That's the captain of the ship. And at the same time, the captain of the ship isn't someone you always go to when something's wrong, right? So he also has these little branches underneath him to get the heartbeat of the whole clubhouse and allow me to just like run range in the clubhouse and allowed me to police a lot of things that might have been a lot at the time for a player, but that's what he needed at the time.
I mention all the time a guy that came over to us from the Boston Red Sox that needed policing, and I think he really helped his career, was Josh Reddick. You played I've said before, you kind of had your thumb on Red as there was times that you needed to kind of pull him back, but you had to let him be him. But I think there's no question what you did for his career really helped him after you left and then take him all the way through Houston.
Yeah, that's one of the things as like a leader and a clubhouse guy is, you never want the credit, right? You got to let that player have the credit. But at the same time, it's not really a train track way of playing or a train track way of coaching. But not only was there, Josh Reddick, but guess who else we found was Josh Donaldson.
Very interesting personality. Love right. JD.
Yeah. Even Cespedes coming over, right? And Cliff Pennington and Derek Norris. And I mean, that team in the 2012, a lot of guys branched out, but a lot of guys didn't really have the direction at such a young age in their career. And I'm just blessed to be able to help them out and get in their way. And man, they took off and were really, really successful.
Yeah. When I think of that, about that year, we just mentioned it yesterday because, a lot of people are trying to poo-poo the starts like, oh, the Rays are not that good. I don't believe in the Pirates. I'm like, you know what? That's part about being a romantic in sports is enjoying as a sports fan. I brought up two teams, and you'll understand this being a Bay Area guy. I say the We Believe Warriors.
Yep.
No one gave them a chance. Out of nowhere, they make the big trade. Next, they're in the playoffs. They knock off the Mavericks, who were the #1 seed. We'd never seen that before. And the 2012 Oakland Athletics.
Yep.
No one believed in the 2012 A's. No one believed, even when the A's got hot starting in June. But that's what we love about sports, because you never know.
Yeah, there's no algorithm for that. There's no past. There's no this. But the one thing I learned is, I was on that 08 Tampa season team.
Yeah.
Won the division with the Reds. Wasn't supposed to happen. 12, 14 Oakland Athletics was a little more talented of a team. Went to the wild card, of course, 13 World Series. And again, the Royals in 2015. But the one thing I learned is, like, you can't panic. Right? It's not the best of start, but you can't panic. And it takes a while for a team sometimes to create an identity. Right. And the identity comes with, like, reps and success. So the success hasn't been there like right away. And what was our 2012 identity? Well, believe it or not, we were walking off, it seemed like, every time at home. Right.
Yeah.
We really were. And which made us believe we were always in the game and we were always going to be exciting late. Is that the best identity to have, is to walk off? Not really. Right. You want some starting pitching, you want some homers, all this stuff. But we able to ride that. And there has to be something that the Oakland Athletics this year can create an identity around.
And I think about Mark Kotsay, and what's tough is Mark Kotsay obviously has the respect for what he's been as a coach for the Oakland Athletics, as a longtime player, 17 years in the big leagues and some great years with the A's. But he knew going in last year was going to be a year coming out of a lockout. It was, you're going to use a lot of players. He used 64 guys. And then here you're off to a bad start. So tell us what it's like when you're trying to establish a culture, but you're not winning and you're utilizing a lot of guys. How do you develop that culture in a clubhouse?
Well, it starts with, he's probably got 12 to 15 guys developing their career while in the big leagues. Granted, it's not AAA. Granted, it's not, AA. There's a lot of guys getting their first crack. We always say, as a player, it's about like 1,500, 2,000 at bats until you know what you're going to get. So that's why it's going to be peaks and valleys, and you really have to praise the peaks, and you have to get them out of the valleys as soon as possible.
That's tough to do.
It is tough to do, and it takes the whole coaching staff. It takes the players. It just takes the whole group to get together.
I heard this about a manager, that he has words in spring for everybody. If he doesn't live by those words throughout the entire season, it really changes how the players feel about him. So when I say that to you, how important truly is it that the guy at the top, and what Mark Kotsay is going to say right now, he sticks to his guns no matter what happens throughout the years, based on his rules, the environment he wants. Kind of like that teacher, the minute the class gets squirrely, if you don't take care of it.
Yeah, that's it. You definitely want these young guys to have a long leash, but with a long leash comes a lot of mistakes. Right. So it's not really the iron fist clap down on the mistakes. There has to be coaching moments in all these bad mistakes. It's like, so not so much punishing the player as much as being more hands-on, educate them of why, educate them of what the other team's doing to you. And at the end of the day, there's so many young ball players on this team. Well, guess what? That's so many more opportunities for Rookie of the Year. That's so many opportunities to shock the world.
Boom.
So it's like, there's no excuses. Oh, we're young, you're young. Well, yeah. Well, we got the most odds for Rookie of the Year. Let's get one.
Yeah, I want my guys, and what I want from this team right now, I want bold.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still frustrated Ruiz hasn't stole that many bases. I want, like, when Ryan Noda, he's been picked off before, but Ryan Noda's aggressive. I want everybody aggressive. Right. Be aggressive. If you're going to make mistakes, so what? My God, we're 5-19.
Yeah.
Do whatever. I mean, balls out every game, all day. This game is about winning. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I hope that's the message inside the clubhouse.
Yeah, that's how it's got to be. Like, pass balls. Pass balls suck, but I want that pass ball to go to the backstop on a fly, right? If you're going to airmail a ball from second base, shortstop, third base, I want it in deck 4, right? If you're going to strike out, well, I want 2 foul homers that were almost fair, and we have something to go on. And then steal. It's like someone handing you $10K of their money and saying, go to Vegas and hang with them. You're going to make some silly decisions because it's not your money, and that's how they got to play. It's the house money.
The first time I met you was I was auditioning for ESPN Radio in Los Angeles.
Every day is an audition.
And I was
every damn day.
And I was they were the Angel station. So I was there at the Big A. You at the time, you're not going to remember this, but you were a Devil Ray at the time. And I remember we interviewed you, and the amount of people that you had in left field. I remember what year this was. This is before my kids were born. So it's got to be like 03 or 04.
Yep.
And all these people from Petaluma came down, and we were doing the show, and all they could, Johnny, they had this cheer, and it was Petaluma.
707
You remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, the area.
It was, and that was the first time we were like, this Jonny Gomes guy is really popular.
Right.
Going back to you were a Devil Ray.
Sure was.
You knew what it was like to be on a team that was going to take its lumps.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we were. And there was a lot of veterans that came in. And what I noticed like right away is these veterans want to come in and play well to get traded, which is par for course sometimes, but I didn't like that. Someone has to step up and want to do good for this org and get this org in the right direction. But with those veterans coming in, I learned a lot from these guys. My first big league spring training, I got Fred McGriff and Tino Martinez. Let's go with that baseball IQ right there. So getting a little piece of the puzzle growing up in the AL East, right? You got the Yankees and the Red Sox every single night, it seemed like. But yeah, I mean, it was like thrown to the wolves. And then guess what? We look up one day and there's World Series painted on the grass in 2008. Like, oh, okay, this is how it's done.
You learn. And by the way, how happy were you for the Crime Dog to get in the Hall of Fame?
How about it? He deserved it. Way overdue. Way overcooked.
Like when people would criticize him, and you're like, man, I don't know. I grew up in the 80s. Right. This guy was hitting bombs for the Blue Jays. Then he was hitting bombs for the Padres. Then he was hitting bombs for the Braves. He turned the Braves around.
Yep.
I mean, and helped them with their championship. I mean, Fred McGriff was and good defensively.
Yeah, I remember them talking about, I think he had like 497 homers. And they're like, he doesn't have 500. That's the dumbest excuse I've ever heard in my life.
And he missed the time because of the lockout.
Yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. 497 over 500. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm glad. But everyone knows the big helicopter Fred McGriff Crime Dog.
And the Tom Amansky videos that he claimed he never ever watched. But we saw that commercial on ESPN, especially late around Sports Center, over and over and over again. It was those times that you spent that when people talk about you, whether it's Boston, it's Kansas City, of course, here in Oakland, something about you in the clubhouse, leaders, there's something that we just can't say this guy's the leader. Well, some guys you just make a leader and they're terrible leaders. What is it about you? When did you first know it that this is my role? This is who I am.
Yeah, well, I found out real quick the biggest separation in players, and even when you go to like arbitration, when you go to arbitration and they're doing arbitration cases, the guy that goes to the postseason will win. Always. I knew from Jump Street, the business side of it, and then the winning side of it. And then you had the really good player, but then you had the winning player. And I always wanted that winning player hung over Jonny Gomes and being that guy. And then once I got to Cincinnati after the World Series in 08, I was Cincinnati, I think 9, 10, and 11. I remember I was getting asked questions that I once asked. And I was like, oh, this is how it works, right? I mean, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, when does that happen? I got to know. But when someone asks you a question that you remember asking and that you now have the answer for, it was kind of like shoulders back a little more. People were watching, people want to learn all this stuff. So I grasped that opportunity, hence the fact I wanted more information. I never wanted a question asked to me that's like, I don't know. We're going to have to go ask someone else. So I think right around that time, I became even more of a baseball rat and a stat rat and a history buff and everything. It took it all in.
Well, and something that people need to realize about guys who are leaders, it's just not helping guys with, hey, this is your approach. This is how you hit. You got to help guys with money. You got to help guys with finding places. You got to help guys with relationships. Like we said, there's human beings. I mean, you're helping these guys learn how to be big leaguers away from the field as much as on the field, because there's a lot of sharks out there.
Yeah, I tell you what, one of the biggest things that I found was to be able to build a relationship with the teammate, right? So what's that mean? Well, that means when there's a runner on third and 0 outs and your buddy's in front of you and he strikes out, like, sure, you want to get a hit, but you want to get a hit more to get that guy's head out of the sand, right? When your buddy's on the mound and he just walks like 3 and you're in the outfield, instead of like kicking rocks, put your head down, you're like, I am going to run through a wall to get my buddy off the mound. right? Versus like, oh, here we go again, another walk. And then boom, that ball's right there and you didn't dive, right? So just having that friendship. And of course, that happens in the clubhouse and that happens on the plane, but you have to build that. And I always thought all four major sports, when they talk post game, after the Super Bowl, after the finals, after whatever it is, they always just go to this team, not the best player, not this, the best team. So creating that relationship in the clubhouse, extremely important.
In all these great years that you had and championship years, what year do you look back as the best of your career?
Wow. There's a lot of individual moments, but from being the JUCO guy up north, the one thing is always like my first game, right? To be able to finally get a taste of big league baseball is at Yankee Stadium, David Wells on the mound, like boom, we're here.
Wow.
And then finding out like no one cares except for you and your family. And this guy's really trying to get you out and all this stuff. That was pretty cool. The first finishing the season with a win. Right. There's only one team that gets to do that. And you think about it, like you haven't lost since the following spring training. And you get that taste of the win throughout the whole offseason. Fortunate enough to do that twice. Fortunate to share the clubhouse with a lot of future Hall of Famers, a lot of MVPs, a lot of rookies of the year. And then, at times, like unfortunate at times, become fortunate now, but moving around so much. I played for 6 teams. That can be tough, but getting a piece of pie from each 6 was able to get the knowledge that I have now.
We never got to see up close the parades, but from afar, watching on MLB Network, it seems like you never got cheated in those 2 parades.
I was in it to win it, buddy. I was in it to win.
You were pretty primed up in the Kansas City. When you got on stage in Kansas City, you were raring to go.
Yeah, good thing there's some tape of it because it was a little cloudy the next day.
Yeah, no,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
those are always funny because we knew. Oh yeah, because there's still pictures that we put up there all the time. The celebration in 2012, the final game, finally reeling in the Texas Rangers, how all the players with the wives and the girlfriends took the pictures, and you're spraying people with the hose and you're doing all that. And then all of a sudden you guys all went away, and there I was up in the press box watching it, and I'm doing the post-game show, and there was just a pyramid of those Bud Light aluminum cans and champagne. There was you guys had all left, and I'm just sitting there taking phone calls, and there's the pyramid of Bud Lights.
And if you don't want to do that as a player, you're not in it for the right reasons. That only the winners get to do that, and then winning, what I learned too, winning is the only anniversary in sports. Think about all the batting titles, think about the gold gloves, think about the 10 consecutive gold gloves or the Triple Crown winners. There's no anniversaries for those. The only anniversaries are the pennant up in the outfield or behind home plate.
It's fact. It's the only thing you really remember.
That's it. Winning.
Because all the other stuff is individual stuff.
Yep.
Luis Medina going tonight. You saw Mason Miller yesterday for the first time. Well, let's start with Miller. You had to be very impressed with what you saw.
There's stuff, right? And that's what you want to look for out of the young guy. Stuff, of course, we're going to jump right to the velocity, right? But what makes a really good fastball, really good secondary fastball, that cutter I think is going to come. And if you have a really good fastball, you obviously have that arm speed, which you can create really good off speed. So if you can start getting guys off that heater with a little of this and a little of that every once in a while. But yeah, to get, kicked right in the butt with 4 runs right in the beginning with the mishap in center field, sitting down, coming back out, and then shoving the rest of the way. It's good to see a little adversity and how he handled it.
It's clear. It's God-given ability.
Sure.
Right? And it's not like he's huffing and puffing. It's pretty effortless 100 to 102. It's not grunting and snarling. That's just poof, letting it rock.
Well, yeah, and if you go back to, where he came from, this 100-mile-an-hour fastball is new for him.
Yeah.
Right? He has a huge velocity jump the last couple of years, figuring this out. Obviously a big kid. He's going from 150 pounds to 170 to 80, now sitting around 200. So this is also a new toy for him. So he's going to have to figure out how all this works. Now,
Medina's scouting report, same thing tonight. It's velocity that can sit 96, 97, jump all the way to 92. He's got a plus curveball. He's got a changeup. For me, and I know it's easier said than done, and I'm just the guy on your screen and on your radio every single day. I say the boob who does the post-game show. But my whole thing is, when you talk about being simplistic today, when you say, okay, this is where we want to attack. We know the fastball moves. We're not going to nibble. We're going to set up. Hell, I'll set up down the middle and let the natural movement go. But the key for this kid today is he has to throw strikes, because if he doesn't, he gets squirrely. You start walking guys. Next, we're talking about 2 2/3, X amount of walks, and you're out of the game. Talk about the strategy of saying, let's just be simplistic. We know what you're good at. Certain zones, we're going to stay in those zones to stay consistent. We're not going to be pitching all over the place and nibbling on the corners. Just got to go out and be aggressive. And if they beat you, they beat you.
Yeah, the one thing I've always talked about is so you got the minor league, so A ball, double A, triple A. You can go A ball to triple A, pretty big jump, but there's not a bigger jump from triple A to the big leagues. That is absolutely the biggest level. And you want to know what really transfers from triple A to the big leagues. It's different for everybody, right? He's going to step on that mound and he's going to look around and he's probably going to do some stuff he's never done before. So you have to have a little bit of a chain, but at the end of the day, he has to go to his strengths, right? When you start talking about, okay, Mike Trout hits this, Ohtani hits this, he's never dealt with that before, right? He's never dealt with this huge advanced scouting report. So he has to start with his strengths, and what didn't really work out, then we'll have to readjust. But just go out there, obviously that high velocity strikes. You definitely don't want to get in, a pitch count jam, because we didn't really get to see what he had.
I talk about competing inside the strike zone.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of young pitchers with these big arms are afraid to be inside the strike zone. That's where you start to see high strikeouts, but you see high walks. I always compare it to a golfer. It's like he makes a lot of birdies, but he makes a lot of bogeys.
Sure.
So they start to even each other out. To me today, hey, if you end up getting beat by Renfroe or Trout or Ohtani or whoever, Neto, who's at the bottom of the lineup, but we know the kid can play. Whoever, but get beat being in the strike zone and giving yourself a chance, because the odds are, Johnny, the odds still shit. No one hits 500.
No.
The odds are if you throw quality strikes, you will get outs.
Yeah, and strike one is really important, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I think can really benefit a young hitter along with a young pitcher is it's so foreign, right? Not every fastball is the same. Not every 96 mile per hour fastball is the same. He can go 96, and as a hitter, you want to go in your Rolodex and what is it like? So the first 2 times through the lineup, these guys have never seen your fastball, never seen your slider, never seen the depth, never seen the late movement. So definitely attack them.
Yeah, I got my gambling guys in Vegas from my old talk show that I used to bring on for football, basketball. They always said they always liked betting a team that was throwing a pitcher that a team has never seen before.
Absolutely. I love the youth, and I love the youth in the late playoff races, and I love all that. I mean, in the 08 season, we had David Price come up, and then that 2012 season going down the stretch with 5 starting rookies. Yeah, I love the foreignness of a young player.
And David Price, you remember, out of Vanderbilt, the number 1 pick and everything. You guys didn't start him.
No.
He was coming out. He's that role that I think that we've seen with certain players. Miller did it with Cleveland. I mean, there's certain guys that have come out and they've just been electric out of the bullpen. They give you 3-4 great innings, and in the postseason, that's huge. And that's what David Price did for you guys.
Yeah, David Price had a heck of a career, but yeah, that ALDS and ALCS, he come out of the bullpen just one time through, get us 9 outs. And the second you might know what he has, I mean, you start him with the fastball, then you start him with this, and then you start him with that, and then they can get a report on you, but we didn't allow him to get a report, right? So I love the foreignness of youth players.
When you look back at your time with the Rays, that's when you guys started doing things differently.
Yeah, you have to.
Right. But we were all kind of like, okay, what is this shifting crap? What is this stuff? You started doing that, as you said, right before you guys started going to the World Series. Joe Madden, we looked at as, kind of like the crazy mad scientist. You look at where baseball is now. Talk about what it was like when you guys actually were starting a lot of this.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was like house money. Okay, so we got a runner on third, and we don't have the best contact guy at the plate. We got a young guy who doesn't really hit that well. How we can get this guy in? Bunt, right? Here comes the safety squeeze. We started to do that. And I remember in the very beginning, Aubrey Huff playing third base, and then now we're going to run him out there.
Aubrey Huff. Yeah. My old radio partner, Aubrey Huff.
And we're going to have 4 outfielders.
Yeah.
Home run in the seats. I go, unless you're putting an outfielder up on the catwalk, this isn't going to work. We still have to pitch, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like we did. We had house money, a lot of double steals. The safety squeeze, I think, became really important. It took a lot of the pressure off a young hitter. I was still trying to go to the fences, but other guys, that safety squeeze. And again, the shift. So it's like move some guys here and there. And we have house money. What if it beats us? Who cares? We got to get creative.
And it worked.
It did. And I'll tell you, big minds behind all that too. Let's just not forget Don Zimmer. Don Zimmer was there. Don Zimmer, he created a lot of that action.
Did he? He never gets any credit.
Nah, I love me some Don Zimmer. I sat by that guy every day and got stories.
Oh, you think about one of the great careers. All right, so you and I are doing TV today. We'll wrap this thing up. I don't know, like long term, what your thoughts are, but from a media standpoint, I mean, we've already talked about how we know you could the coaching and however you want to go after that path. What do you think about this path?
I love this path. Like I said, I love the opportunity. I love breakdowns. I love educating the fans. Is some of the best compliments I got. It's like, oh, I never knew that was happening, right? When the game slows down, it's not boring. There's a lot of stuff going on. Let's look at the signs like over here. Look at the center fielder was on this side and now he's on that side. And guess where he's going to pitch him? We'll just follow the center fielder. Like, oh, let's get a fake break at first to see who's covering on a first and third. Just cool stuff that I love gathering and I love giving it back.
Well, it's all the stuff you learned in the dugout, but not everybody learns that.
No. Yeah.
Some people are students of the game. Some people just have I always say Ken Griffey Jr. didn't care who was pitching, never watched video. Ken Griffey just showed up and hit bombs and was Ken Griffey.
Yeah, he was good from 9 years old all the way to the end.
He could probably DH now.
Yeah.
After rumors that WBC batting practice, he was out hitting everybody as the hitting coach of the WBC American
Of course he
team.
was. Why wouldn't he? Of course he was. You got Mike Trout videoing him. You see who the GOAT is. Yeah.
No, it's I'm excited about today because, a lot of people, obviously we know what's going on, but this is still the game that we love. We still have passion for it and we can go out and still present it to the public and have a good time. And the thing is, you being from Petaluma, you growing up an A's fan, we all really know. And it's the same thing with Dave Stewart. It's the same thing with Shooty Babbitt. It's the same thing with Pip Roberts. You guys all wore the A's uniform and you all grew up A's fans. So it means a little extra something to you.
It does to me too. I mean, I'm biased to that jersey. I'm biased to the white cleats. I'm biased to the Coliseum. That's where it all started for me. And my love for the game really kicked off in the '89 World Series. I can't forget about that. Right, Ricky Henderson sliding head first. I slid head first as much as I could because of Ricky. And then why wouldn't
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, a little here. But and then I thought it was really cool at a young age to hit a bunch of homers like the Bash brothers. Carney Lansford getting ready, right? Like the pre-pitch, like boom, Mike Gallego doing this. So those guys grew me to be a player I was.
Well, I can tell you one of my original experiences with Jonny Gomes was the flight to Japan on 2012 where you had this jumbo jet double decker and we ran out of vodka.
Yeah, I can honestly say I got drunk twice on that flight.
Yeah, and they were telling us
twice.
They're saying, do not drink. You got to hydrate because the time did. Well, we didn't take that advice.
No. Yeah, and I didn't fly all the way to Japan to face King Felix either, by the way. Jeez.
And then to come back on opening day and face him again. And we had you opening when we come back facing the Mariners.
Yep.
We had you already 0 for 2.
Yep.
Lost twice to Seattle. Come back getting King Felix again. You did the pregame show with me and predicted this team would be in the playoffs, and everybody laughed.
Good. Yeah, that's okay, right? But I mean, you do have to have that mindset, right? And the one thing that I really brought that kind of stuck out with me is this was like a rebuilding year. I remember it was like this fake like construction tape, caution, like all this stuff. Like, how do you have a rebuilding at bat? Right? How do you pitch on a rebuilding team? Like you got to eliminate that, right? Like we're here to smash balls and we're here to score more runs than the other team. Numbers, sabermetrics, algorithms, blah, blah. But it boils down to whoever touches the dish more than the other team's going to win. So we just got to find some ways to do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. We talk about a lot of ways to win baseball games. Last time I checked, it hasn't changed. The team who scores more wins.
Yeah. Fact.
No matter how you do it, no matter how you figure out to score more and eliminate the other team from scoring, that's the name of the game. Whether I throw 100, I was like, we were talking about it because we bring on Eno Saris, who's great at analytics. He's our national baseball columnist from The Athletic, and he's got his stuff plus. I'm like, well, Greg Maddux won, coded 355, 355 games. Would Greg Maddux ever have been stuff plus?
No.
I mean, he wasn't throwing 100. He wasn't.
Yeah.
Tom Glavine.
Yeah. And then you know what? Sometimes you just got to will your way into it. Right. Sometimes it's not like talent versus talent. Sometimes you just who wants it more that night. And I always, tell these young guys and stuff, it's what are you going to do tonight to not lose? Because guess what? Everyone wants to win. Every fan wants to see a winning game. But what are you going to do to not lose? Are you going to run out that hard 90? Are you going to sacrifice your at bat to maybe see more pitches? Right. The guy's got 80 pitches and he's going out for the 6th. Right. Well, we got to get him to 100. So maybe you have to take the first 2 or take the first 3. You're sitting in a hitter's count 2-0, regardless that you have to take just to earn that other one. Right. You got to break up 2. A lot of stuff. What are you going to do tonight to not lose?
Well, in your career, you won World Series with 2 different teams. One was supreme firepower,
Yep.
and then you won another World Series on a team that was supreme contact. You won it both ways.
Yeah, you know what? That's one of the things I always bring out. Is a lot of people want me to compare the Red Sox team to the Royals team. Why wouldn't you, right? Like, what team was like better? And then I made it to the playoffs with a couple other teams, and also had some bad season. What I realized was winning teams are extremely different. The losing teams are all exactly the same.
Crap is crap, and it all smells like crap.
Yeah. The Kansas City Royals, right?
Yeah.
It was like single, whatever. The Red Sox was like walk, homer. Walk, homer. The Kansas City, we had that bridge. We had a 6th inning guy, 7th inning guy, 8th inning, 9th inning guy. The Red Sox, we would our starters go deep. Totally different ways of stealing. It's totally different ways of winning. Totally different ways of scoring the dish. But when you go down to those last place teams, highlight copy.
I could do this all day with this man. And the reality is I am. We're going to do A's pregame live in just a little bit on NBC Sports California. And then we'll be doing A's pregame live and postgame live on Thursday, tomorrow.
Yep.
Shohei Ohtani will be on the mound against JP Sears. So we're going to be doing a lot. Once again, I have the ultimate respect for you as a person, your career, what you did for us on A's Radio, what you do for us now on A's Cast. You'll always be one of the all-time A's fan favorites.
Now, for the first time, we're in the same dugout.
Boom. Coming up next, we're going to have more for you right here on A's Cast Live.